Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. There's a kind of silence that doesn't belong in a family home. It's not peaceful, not comforting. It's more like insulation, something stuffed between walls to keep sound from escaping. And in my house, it had been growing for months. It started subtly, as it always does. Jenna had picked up a new project at work, something cross-departmental, fast-paced. She was suddenly texting at midnight again, giggling in the kitchen while washing coffee mugs, humming tunes I didn't recognize under her breath. The kind of energy you can't manufacture. The kind that either comes from falling in love or falling out of something else. I knew better than to accuse her. Not without proof. Not with kids in the house. Not when every time I asked what was so funny or who she was texting, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Oh my God, it's just Caleb from work. He's hilarious. Don't be paranoid." Paranoid. Funny how that word turns up every time you're close to the truth. The first time I met Caleb, he walked into my home like he already knew where everything was. Didn't shake my hand, didn't even take off his shoes. He just grinned at me like I'd left the door unlocked and he was here to redecorate. He was the kind of guy people called charming until they found him in bed with their wives. The kind of guy who called everyone bro, and then asked her daughter if she had a boyfriend yet, tongue-in-cheek, of course. My son liked him. My daughter adored him. Even my in-laws seemed taken with him after just one dinner. Jenna called it harmless. She said he was just good with people. Maybe he was. He was certainly good at something. Over time, I started noticing little shifts, him showing up uninvited, bringing leftovers he just happened to have, fixing that one broken hinge on the bathroom door that I'd been meaning to get to. Then he started picking up the kids from school with Jenna, just to help save gas, she said. I hadn't asked. I didn't recall needing help. But slowly, like fog settling over a field, he became part of our routine. He became part of our life. I stood there watching it happen from the inside, while everyone else smiled and clapped like we were getting an upgrade. I talked to Jenna once, really talked. We were sitting on the edge of the bed. I told her how it felt, how I felt like a guest in my own marriage, how Caleb's presence made me feel invisible, irrelevant. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just exhaled like she was tired of repeating herself. You're making this into something it's not. Caleb's just a friend. He's good with the kids. You act like every man who's nice to me wants to sleep with me. I didn't say anything then. I knew I wasn't crazy. I just wasn't going to win by pushing her harder. The next blow came from my daughter. She's 13, smart, too sharp for her age. We were watching something on TV, just the two of us. Some drama where the husband finally calls out the guy his wife's been sneaking around with. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know." Caleb would never freak out like that. Real men don't get jealous. Real men forgive. I froze. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Like she'd been thinking it for a while. Like maybe she'd heard it before, maybe even from her mother. I didn't respond. Didn't trust myself to. But inside, I felt something start to shift. Not rage. Not even heartbreak. Just a slow, solidifying certainty that I'd already been replaced. Not officially. Not legally. But emotionally? He was already wearing my shoes. And no one seemed to mind. Not even my kids. And me? I wasn't angry. Not yet. Because anger's loud, messy. I didn't have time for that. I was studying. Waiting. Measuring the storm. Because when it came time to strike, I wouldn't shout. I'd break the silence in a language Caleb would understand. It was Jenna's idea to have everyone over for dinner. A casual thing, she said. Nothing fancy. Just a few people from her office and the kids. You can man the grill, she added with that breezy tone she uses when she's trying to make something sound harmless. I wasn't in the mood to entertain. I hadn't been for a long time. But I said yes. I wanted to see them all together, her, Caleb, the way he'd mesh with my kids like it was his place too. I wanted to see what my wife looked like when she laughed at his jokes in front of witnesses. Not just behind my back. The night started off just like I expected. Caleb showed up early, of course. He brought wine and some kind of artisan bread wrapped in butcher paper. He complimented my son's haircut, fist-bumped my daughter like they were old friends, and gave Jenna a side hug that lingered just a little too long for something you give someone else's wife. He didn't look at me when he came in. He scanned the room, said, "Smells good, chef," then moved on. Chef. As if I was the help. I grilled. Listened. Watched. Every time Caleb spoke, he turned it into a show. He had stories about skydiving, camping in Thailand, surfing in Morocco. I'd been working double shifts for the last year to keep the roof over our heads. But sure, tell me more about your sunset yoga retreat. He was animated, charismatic, loud. Every sentence had a punchline. And Jenna? She laughed like she hadn't laughed with me in years. The kids ate it up. Even my daughter, who used to beg me to read her bedtime stories in silly voices, was now hanging on his every word like he was the hero in her life's movie. I was just background noise. Still, I didn't say anything. I waited. It wasn't until after dessert that it happened. The table had cleared. Most of the guests were gone. Caleb stayed behind to help clean up. We were in the kitchen. Just the three of us, me, Jenna, him. She was rinsing plates. He was drying them with one hand, sipping wine with the other. I leaned back against the counter. Calm. Composed. Then I said it. So, Caleb, anything you want to confess before I ask? He didn't flinch. He just gave me that same smirk he'd worn since the moment he stepped inside my house. What do you mean? He asked, with mock innocence. Jenna stopped rinsing. Her eyes flicked between us. She knew. I didn't press yet. I mean the way you look at my wife. The way you've been shadowing my kids like you're auditioning for a role. He laughed. And then, just like that, something shifted. He stepped closer. Set down the dish towel. You really think I've got something going on with Jenna? He asked, voice soft now. Slow. Like I was a child he was trying to correct. Man, you're more insecure than she said. I heard her suck in a breath behind him. But still, she didn't speak. I think that's when he knew he had room to push. He took another step forward. We were eye to eye now. He leaned in close, just enough to make it feel intentional. And then he slapped me. Open palm. Sharp. Sudden. Not across the face. Across the chest. A hit meant more to insult than to hurt. But it did hurt. Not the slap itself. That part barely registered. What hurt was the audacity. The silence afterward. The lack of reaction from Jenna. And the unmistakable gasp from the hallway. I turned my head. My daughter was standing there. My son beside her. Both frozen. She had dropped the glass of water she was carrying. No one moved. Caleb grinned. That wake you up, big guy, he said under his breath. And I swear to God, I saw it in her eyes then my wife. Not remorse. Not fear. Something else. Permission. Like this had been building up for so long she couldn't stop it anymore, or maybe didn't want to. And that's when I knew. It wasn't just the slap. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the performance of it. The way he claimed that moment in my home, in front of my children, like it was a throne and I was the fool sitting too close to it. I didn't react. Not yet. I walked out of the kitchen, past my kids, past the hallway. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat down on the edge of the tub. I didn't cry, didn't shake, didn't panic. I just stared at my reflection in the mirror, took a breath, and started planning. Because when the moment came, it wouldn't be a slap. It wouldn't be for show. It would be the last thing Caleb remembered before the paramedics picked him up off my floor. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. I'd already moved past that. No, what kept me awake was the clarity. That sharpened kind of awareness that only comes after you've hit your lowest point. When there's nothing left to defend, and all you've got is the truth and what you choose to do with it. Jenna didn't come to bed that night. I heard her pacing the hallway after I locked the door. Once. Twice. Then silence. She probably slept on the couch. Or with her phone in her hand, texting Caleb some sanitized version of what happened. I stayed where I was. Awake. Eyes wide open. Letting it all sink in. And then I got to work. At 3:17 a.m., I opened my laptop. Opened our family cloud account. Jenna had never been great with passwords, and I'd always been the one to manage the tech. I scrolled through synced messages. Backed up app data. Pulled up old location histories. Then I found it. Photos. Screenshots. A few emails from her work address forwarded to a personal one. Most of them innocent at first glance, Caleb's name popping up in conversations about marketing reports and event logistics. But the timestamps didn't match what she'd told me. There were whole weekends she said she was on work trips, and yet the emails made it clear she was right here, in town, at his place. Worse still? A video. It was from our own house. Not security footage, just a short clip, 15 seconds, taken by my daughter. She must have been playing with my phone at the time. I remembered that week. She had been pretending to be a YouTube vlogger and wandered around recording everything. The video was from the kitchen. My wife, leaning in close to Caleb. He said something I couldn't hear clearly, but she laughed, reached up, and touched his chest. Not a friendly touch. An intimate one. She kissed his cheek. He grabbed her waist. My daughter's voice giggled from behind the camera. Then the video cut. She didn't understand what she saw. Probably forgot she even recorded it. But I didn't forget. And I never would. The next day, I called my sister. Told her I needed to drop the kids off for a few hours. No explanation. Just asked for help. She said yes, no questions asked. Then I made a few prints, just the cleanest evidence. The video, the emails, one photo where Jenna and Caleb looked a little too tangled up for a family friend. No confrontation. No screaming. Not yet. Instead, I sent Jenna a message mid-afternoon. Dinner tonight. You, me, the kids. No guests. Just us. She replied within minutes. Okay. What's this about? I didn't answer. I needed her unsure. I needed her just unsettled enough to walk into it thinking maybe, just maybe, this was my olive branch. Maybe this was my attempt at forgiveness. She'd be disarmed, softer, hopeful, even. Good. Let her hope. I picked up the kids at 5:30. Told them we were doing something special tonight, just a quiet family meal. They smiled. My daughter braided her hair. My son put on the red polo he wears when he's trying to be fancy. They missed normal. I did too. But tonight wasn't about normal. It was about truth. When we sat down at the table, Jenna tried to make small talk. Kept the conversation light, floating above the surface like she always did when she was nervous. I let her speak. Let the kids eat. Let the tension settle across the table like dust. And then I stood up. Walked to the sideboard. Opened the drawer. Took out the folder I'd prepped. I slid it across the table to her. Quietly. What's this? She asked, already pale. Just a little clarity, I said. For the kids. Since you didn't think they deserved it. She opened it. First page, the photo. Second page, the forwarded emails. Third page, a QR code linking to the video. Her hands trembled. I could see her pulse in her neck, stammering faster and faster. My daughter glanced over, curious. Jenna slammed the folder shut. Don't, she started. But it was too late. My daughter had already read the subject line of the first email. Last night was electric. Can't believe how close he came to walking in. Caleb's name was in the signature block. And the date? Only 2 weeks ago. My daughter looked at me. Eyes wide. Confused. Daddy, what is this? And that's when Jenna lost whatever composure she had left. It's not what it looks like. He's twisting everything. I raised my hand. Not to hit. Just to stop the noise. I looked her dead in the eyes. You let him hit me, I said. In front of them. That wasn't a betrayal. That was a statement. And she said nothing. Because what could she say? The silence in that room was louder than anything I'd heard in months. But that was nothing compared to what came next. Because now it was Caleb's turn. He showed up just after 8. Didn't knock. Just let himself in, like he always had. That alone told me everything I needed to know. Jenna must have called him after dinner. Maybe she thought if he showed up with some kind of calm explanation, she could spin it. Control the narrative. Keep the kids from turning on her. But if that was the plan, she was already too late. My daughter hadn't spoken since she saw the folder. She sat in her room with the door closed. I didn't press her. My son had gone quiet too, watching cartoons like it was his last island of normal. But I could see it in his eyes, the knowledge that something had changed. Something big. When Caleb stepped into the living room, he was wearing that same smug half-grin, like this was just a minor inconvenience. Hey, he said, nodding at me like we were old teammates settling a disagreement. Can we talk? I didn't answer. He glanced toward the stairs. Are the kids here? Maybe we should. They stay, I said. He blinked. That caught him off guard. I'm not doing this behind closed doors, I added. You made your move in front of my children. So you're going to face them now. He looked at Jenna. She stood frozen near the hallway, arms folded tight like she was trying to hold herself together. Babe, he said quietly. She didn't respond. Smartest thing she'd done all night. I stood up. Stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. This is what's going to happen, I said. You're going to apologize to my kids for pretending to be someone safe. You're going to admit you disrespected their father in this house. And then you're going to leave. He gave a short laugh. Come on, man. What are you, some old school Clint Eastwood fantasy? Nobody's buying that alpha act. Then he smirked. Again. That same goddamn smirk. He took one step closer and leaned in like he was going to whisper something, like this was still a joke. Still some game he was playing with my family like we were his playground. And that's when I hit him. One punch. Not a wild swing. A straight, compact right, launched from my shoulder, clean into the center of his face. The sound was sharp, not like the movies. No dramatic slow emo crunch. Just the solid, wet pop of cartilage giving out. He collapsed backward into the coffee table, cracking it down the middle as he went down. His head bounced once off the hardwood, his body twitching as he groaned, clutching his face. Blood poured through his fingers. He tried to sit up. Failed. Tried again. Failed again. I stepped back, walked into the kitchen, opened the freezer, and pulled out the ice pack I'd wrapped in a towel hours earlier. Sat down in the armchair. Crossed one leg over the other. Pressed the pack to my knuckles. He was still trying to speak, something garbled and wet. Words didn't come out, just spit and blood. My son stepped out from the hallway then, peering around the corner. He saw Caleb on the floor. Saw me sitting there calmly. Saw Jenna standing with her hand over her mouth, pale and trembling. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just looked at me. And I looked right back. Not with rage. With certainty. He needed to see that. Needed to see that I hadn't backed down. That I hadn't folded. That I wasn't the man Caleb tried to turn me into passive, small, forgettable. I was still his father. And no one, no matter how slick, how charming, how good with jokes and backhanded compliments, was going to walk into my home, slap me in front of my children, and leave without consequence. The paramedics came 10 minutes later. Jenna had called them. I didn't stop her. They asked me what happened. I told them the truth. He tried to make a statement. I made mine back. They didn't argue. Just loaded Caleb onto the gurney while he muttered and groaned through the towel press to his face. I gave them a nod as they left. Then I looked at my kids. It's over now, I said quietly. He won't be coming back. Neither of them said anything. But the look in my daughter's eyes? It was different now. Not scared. Not confused. Respect. She saw me. Not the version her mother and Caleb had chipped away at over the past year. Me. I held the ice to my knuckles and closed my eyes. And for the first time in months, I could breathe again. The next morning, the house was still. No one said much. Jenna stayed in the guest room. I heard her moving around at dawn, probably packing some things. She didn't try to talk to me. Maybe she knew there wasn't anything left to say that wouldn't make it worse. I made breakfast for the kids. Nothing special, just eggs and toast. But they sat with me, ate in silence. My son asked if I could drop him off at school instead of Mom. My daughter didn't say anything, just nodded when I asked if she wanted her lunch packed the usual way. The world hadn't ended, but it had shifted. That evening, I started setting things in motion, called a lawyer, asked about custody options, requested the paperwork. I wasn't going to take everything from Jenna, but I wasn't leaving things in her hands either. I wasn't going to be the passive one anymore. As for Caleb, I didn't hear much. He was released from the ER that night, nose broken, front tooth gone, orbital bruising. He didn't press charges. I think deep down, even he knew he had it coming. Word got around. Quietly. Not in tabloids or group chats, but in glances. In awkward silences among the mutual friends who'd always pretended not to notice what was happening. In the way people looked at Jenna now when we crossed paths at school events or community stuff. They didn't judge her. Not loudly. But they saw her differently. And that was enough. I moved into an apartment not far from the house. Just close enough to keep picking up the kids without disruption. And every weekend, every drop-off, every handshake with my son or hug from my daughter carried a little more weight than before. I'd proven something. Not just to Caleb. Not even to Jenna. To my children. That sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to make sure he never forgets the cost of stepping into your space. And that was the real ending. But there was another version of me. One who did nothing. Who stood in that kitchen after the slap and swallowed the humiliation. Who smiled through clenched teeth and let Jenna gaslight him into thinking it was just a misunderstanding or a moment of stress. In that version, Caleb stayed. Grew bolder. Maybe moved and eventually. The kids started calling him uncle or worse. Started respecting him more than they respected me. And I would have become a ghost in their eyes. The man who watched it all happen and couldn't or wouldn't fight back. That version of me would have died in stages. And they would have written him out of their story completely. And sometimes I imagine a darker version. One where I didn't stop at one punch. Where rage got the better of me. Where Caleb left the house in an ambulance with more than a broken nose, and I left in handcuffs, with my kids watching from behind a police cruiser's door. In that world, Jenna spins the story perfectly. I become the unstable one. The violent one. My kids grow up thinking I snapped, not because I was betrayed, but because I was weak. I lose custody. I lose them. And Caleb becomes a martyr instead of a parasite. That outcome frightens me more than any betrayal ever did. Because in that version, he wins twice, once in my home, and once in their memory. But that's not how it went. I stopped it. Cold. Clean. Definitive. And now? Every time I look at my daughter, I don't just see my child. I see a young woman who watched her father stand up, not just for himself, but for what he refused to let die quietly. And every time I look in the mirror, I see a man who let someone take their shot and made sure they'd never take another.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.